In the modern world, the desexualized man is harder to control. This is not because he has lost his desire, but because he has mastered it. He has taken the raw, untamed energy of his instincts and transmuted it into a force of purpose and clarity. He is not swayed by the fleeting pleasures that society dangles before him, nor is he enslaved by the endless pursuit of gratification. Instead, he channels his energy into building, creating, and leading. Such a man is a threat to the systems that rely on distraction and dependency. He cannot be easily manipulated by advertising that preys on insecurities or by narratives that exploit emotional vulnerabilities. His self-control is a form of rebellion, a quiet yet powerful resistance against a culture that seeks to keep him in a state of perpetual want. The desexualized man is not devoid of passion. Rather, his passion is directed and purposeful. He understands that true freedom comes not from indulging every impulse, but from mastering them. In doing so, he becomes a beacon of strength and stability in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain. In embracing this path, the modern man reclaims his agency and redefines what it means to live with integrity and purpose. He becomes not only harder to control, but also a source of inspiration for others seeking to break free from the chains of societal expectations and rediscover their true selves. He is no longer ruled by the whims of lust, nor by the gaze of a society that profits off his arousal. For the desexualized man, his vision is no longer clouded by the sirens of flesh and fantasy. He has remembered something primal, something ancient that existed before the algorithm, before the billboard, before the endless scroll of thighs and temptation. He has remembered himself. And when a man remembers himself truly, he becomes dangerous. Not to others in violence, but to the illusions that once held him captive, to the systems built on his weakness. He becomes immune to the seductive voice of manipulation, because now he sees. He sees how his desires were never truly his own. They were programmed, implanted, cultivated like crops in the field of his psyche, watered by ads, fertilized by shame, harvested by industries that sell him back a broken image of manhood at a premium. He sees how entire economies thrive on his emptiness. Because when a man is hungry for intimacy but starved of self-worth, he will buy anything. He will chase anyone. He will kneel to everything. But when he awakens from this dream, when he no longer hungers the way they've taught him to, he doesn't become cold. He becomes sovereign. And sovereignty cannot be sold. There is a terrifying calm in such a man. He walks differently, not arrogantly, but with a stillness that unsettles those addicted to noise. He no longer needs to prove his masculinity by conquest or chaos. He no longer validates himself by how many women look his way. His masculinity is no longer fragilatis forged, tempered in the fires of his own struggle, made sharp through his solitude. The desexualized man does not deny the feminine. He simply refuses to be enslaved by it. He recognizes her beauty, her power, her chaos, but he bows to no goddess made in the image of consumerism. He does not kneel before the altar of attention. He does not offer up his purpose as a sacrifice to fleeting pleasures. He loves, yes. He feels deeply, but he chooses from clarity, not craving, because craving is the language of control. And those who crave are easy to guide like cattle through narrow gates. But the man who no longer craves, he builds his own gates, he writes his own laws, and those who rule by impulse fear nothing more than a man who no longer seeks their approval. Because he cannot be bribed with beauty. He cannot be coerced with shame. He cannot be distracted by the flashing lights of pleasure sold as freedom. He sees the difference between freedom and sedation. Freedom is hard. It demands sacrifice. It calls for inner war. But sedation, that's easy. Just keep scrolling, keep swiping, keep numbing the ache with likes and lust and the illusion of connection. But the desexualized man has turned off the feed. He's faced the ache. He's walked into the silence that most men avoid, and in that silence, he met his soul. And once a man meets, his soul truly meets eyes, never chases shadows again. He doesn't chase women, he doesn't chase trends, he doesn't chase validation. He moves toward destiny. He walks with the ghosts of philosophers, warriors, mystics. He hears the voice of Jung echoing in his chest, who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakes. He has awoken. He is no longer the boy hypnotized by curves and compliments. He is the man forged in restraint, the man who took his sexual energy not to suppress it, but to elevate it. He redirected it into his mission, his mind, his art, his spirit. He became dangerous not to others, but to the lies that once ruled him. The desexualized man is not lifeless. He is not monk-like in numbness. He is vivid, alive. But every desire within him now bows before his will, because he has made a choice to be a king of his own kingdom, not a pawn in theirs. And so, the question remains, what do you serve? Desire or destiny? Because every man serves something. Every man is owned by something. The tragedy is not in being owned, it is in never knowing who holds the chains. But the desexualized man has traced the chain to its root, and he broke it quietly, without applause, without announcement, just the sound of steel snapping in the privacy of his own mind. And that, my friend, is where real power begins. Real power begins not with domination over others, but with domination over the self. And this is where the world begins to tremble. Because when a man reclaims the fortress of his mind, the empire of his soul, the economy of pleasure that once governed him starts to crumble, he becomes unpredictable. And in a world that feeds on your predictability, on your weakness, on your guaranteed reactions, nothing is more terrifying than a man who no longer flinches. They can parade half-naked idols in front of him, and he will not kneel. They can sell him shame dressed as empowerment, and he will not buy. They can strip him of titles, applause, approval, and still he will stand. For he has built a sanctuary within, a place no algorithm can touch, no marketing campaign can reach. He has faced the dragon of lust, not to cage it, but to ride it, to harness its fire, not for destruction, but for creation. He understands now that the energy which once drove him to compulsive craving is the very energy that can sculpt legacies, launch revolutions, write scripture. Sexual energy is divine, but divinity without discipline is just destruction in disguise. And the desexualized man, he has learned discipline, not from fear, but from reverence. Reverence for his potential, reverence for the temple of his own body, reverence for the sacredness of connection. He does not touch out of need, he touches out of overflow. He does not pursue out of hunger, he pursues from wholeness. Because the desexualized man does not need women to feel like a man. That is the lie they sold him. That manhood is earned through conquest, through possession, through the number of hearts you break or beds you enter. But he knows now none of that makes a man. A man is not built in bedrooms. He's built in solitude, in silence, in the fire of self-mastery, where no one watches, where no one claps. And it is therein that sacred stillness that he finds his power. Not the power to take, but the power to choose. And choosing is the real rebellion. In a world designed to make you react, to make you consume, to make you chase, choosing is an act of war. Choosing clarity over chaos, purpose over pleasure, mission over moment. And so he becomes free, not because he denies the flesh, but because the flesh no longer rules him. He walks through the same world, sees the same temptations, but feels no pull. Not because he is numb, but because he is full. Full of something greater, something eternal. The hunger that once gnawed at his soul has been replaced with something far more dangerous to the system. Satisfaction. A man who is satisfied cannot be sold. A man who is full cannot be controlled. A man who has tasted the richness of discipline, the ecstasy of focus, the fire of mission, does not return to the junk food of shallow gratification. And here lies the greatest threat to the modern empire. A man whose desires no longer control him. He doesn't riot, he doesn't scream, he simply refuses to play. He exits the game, and when enough men do this, when enough men unplug their energy from the matrix of lust, of illusion, of manipulation, the entire architecture of control begins to collapse. Because every empire of control needs fuel, and for centuries, the fuel has been men's unmet desires, their shame, their uninitiated hunger, their endless pursuit of what will never satisfy. But when that fuel runs dry, when men stop being slaves to what titillates and start becoming priests of what transforms, there is nothing left for the machine to feed on. It starves. And that is why they fear him, the desexualized man, because he cannot be bought, because he cannot be seduced, because he does not need what they are selling. He has become sovereign. He has remembered that the kingdom of heaven is not found in pixels or promises, but within. And having reclaimed that inner throne, he now walks not as a beggar, but as a builder, not as a chaser, but as a creator, not as a consumer, but as a king. And kings, true kings, cannot be controlled. Kings cannot be controlled because their compass points inward, not outward. They do not wait for permission. They do not seek consensus. They are not driven by the applause of the crowd or the warmth of temporary companionship. Their decisions are carved from the granite of inner truth. Their boundaries are not negotiable. Their time is sacred, and their energy guarded like a temple. Because energy is the new currency, and a desexualized man has stopped leaking it. Most men spend their days hemorrhaging their life force, not just in lust, but in distraction, in argument, in fantasy, in validation seeking. They are drained before they ever begin, tired before the battle starts, and they wonder why they feel numb. They wonder why purpose feels distant. They wonder why joy never lands fully. But the desexualized man has sealed the holes. He no longer bleeds energy for things that do not return it. He does not fight battles that don't matter. He does not explain himself to those who have already decided who he is. He does not try to convert the blind. He simply walks calm, clear, contained. This is not arrogance. It is sacred indifference. Because he has learned the cost of scattering himself, of chasing pleasure like a beggar, of handing out pieces of his soul to every smile, every curve, every compliment. And in that cost, he found a truth, that the world doesn't honor the man who gives everything. It devours him, it uses him, it discards him. But the man who withholds, the man who reserves his power, not out of fear, but out of discipline, the world bends around him. Not because he demands it, but because energy obeys structure. And he has become a structure, a fortress, a pillar of quiet gravity. And others feel it, whether they understand it or not. His presence speaks before he does, because it is not lust that walks into the room with him. It is purpose. Purpose, like fire, cannot be faked. And when a man is lit from within, when his energy is no longer entangled in fantasy and approval, he doesn't need to talk about his power. He simply is, like a mountain, like a storm on the horizon, like still water hiding great depths. He sees now that his energy was never meant to be spent in chasing the validation of others. It was meant to build the inner kingdom, to master the self, to refine the will, and only then to share selectively, intentionally, sovereignly. He is not closed off. He is simply not available for what cheapens him. He honors the feminine, but he does not bow to it. He honors beauty, but he is not possessed by it. He honors connection, but not at the cost of his clarity. He understands now that love without boundaries is not love. It is collapse. And so he stands, not in isolation, but in integration, whole, full, awake. This is the man they do not want you to become. The man who no longer flinches. The man who doesn't need porn to feel alive. The man who doesn't need attention to feel seen. The man who does not abandon himself to be chosen, because he has already chosen himself. And that decision, once made, cannot be undone. It changes the very fabric of his being. It realigns his compass. It alters his chemistry. He starts to vibrate differently. He walks differently. He speaks less but says more. He listens more but hears deeper. He becomes the rarest thing in a world drowning in desperation. A man who is enough, not because the world told him so, but because he remembered it. He remembered that power isn't in possession. It's in presence. It's in purity. It's in the ability to say no. No to what drains. No to what distracts. No to what dilutes. And in every no he speaks to the world, a deeper yes echoes within him. Yes to clarity. Yes to vision. Yes to legacy. Yes to the man he was always meant to be, before the noise, before the programming, before the seduction of the synthetic. And now, with his energy reclaimed, his instincts mastered, his clarity restored, he is ready. Not to conquer others, but to command himself. Because in the end, the greatest enemy was never out there. It was always the part of him that believed he was not enough without her, without it, without them. But that belief is dead. And in its place, a king is born. A king is born not in the blaze of ceremony, but in the quiet crucible of decision. He is born the moment he chooses self-command over self-comfort. The moment he rejects the world's definition of manhood and returns to the deeper, older path walked by warriors of the spirit, prophets of truth, and rebels of the soul. He becomes not an icon of desire, but a guardian of direction. Because now he understands what they tried to hide, that the most dangerous man is not the one who has everything, but the one who needs nothing, the one who can walk away from pleasure, the one who can sit in silence and still feel full, the one who has tamed the beast within and now rides it like a stallion toward purpose. This man cannot be lured, he cannot be rattled, he cannot be bought. His value does not fluctuate with attention. His worth is not measured by conquest. His identity is not tied to how many eyes follow him, but to how many demons he has faced in solitude. Because the desexualized man has done what most refuse to do. He has turned inward. He has stared into the abyss of his cravings, and he did not blink. He has faced the loneliness that drives most men into the arms of anything that moves, and instead of fleeing, he made it a companion. He learned to sit with his own hunger, not to feed it, but to understand it. And in understanding it, he was freed. Freed from the lie that he is only as valuable as his virility. Freed from the myth that satisfaction comes from the outside. Freed from the story that he must chase in order to matter. No. Now, he no longer chases, he builds, he blesses, he burns. Because the fire that once consumed him with lust now fuels him with vision. He sees through the matrix now. He sees how the feminine has been weaponized against the masculine, not by women, but by culture. How images, ideals, and idols have been crafted not to celebrate beauty, but to ensnare men, to keep them hooked, hungry, hollow. Because a man constantly in pursuit of the next high, whether through sex, screens, or statuses, a man who never stops long enough to ask, why? Why am I running? Why do I feel empty? Why do I hand over my attention so freely? But the desexualized man, he has asked, and in asking, he shattered the illusion. He saw that what he was chasing was never the body, it was the belonging, never the lust, it was the love, never the woman, it was the self he thought he had to find in her eyes. But she cannot give him what he has not given himself. And so he returned to the core, to the root, to the man before the wound. And he made peace there. He forgave himself for the years wasted in addiction, in distraction, in trying to fill a void with bodies and dopamine and synthetic victories. He did not curse the past, but he did not carry it forward. He laid it down like old armor, heavy, rusted, useless now, because he no longer needs armor. He has become the weapon. His mind is sharp. His focus is fierce. His presence is felt. And when he speaks, it is not to impress, it is to express truth unapologetically, without decoration, without dilution, because he knows the cost of silence, the price of pretending, the spiritual death of the agreeable man. He is not agreeable. He is aligned, and alignment breeds confidence that cannot be mimicked. It is not loud. It is not flashy. It is the quiet, unshakable knowing that he is enough, with or without applause. He no longer needs to be chosen because he chose himself. And from that choice, a new world opens. Not a world free from desire, but a world ruled by higher desires. The desire to create, not consume. The desire to lead, not follow. The desire to embody purpose so deeply that pleasure becomes a consequence, a pursuit. And when a man lives this way, something remarkable happens. Women no longer distract him, they are drawn to him. Not the ones who seek to drain, but the ones who seek to rise, because energy recognizes energy, power calls to power. And only when a man has claimed his own throne can he ever meet a queen on hers. Until then, all love is slavery. All pleasure is addiction. All desire is debt. But now he owes nothing, because he has paid the price in loneliness, in fire, in walking the path few dare to tread. And for that, he is free. Freedom is not the absence of desire. It is the mastery of it. And now, here you stand at the edge of that mastery, at the precipice of a different life. One where you are no longer pulled by the strings of hidden hands, no longer dancing to the rhythm of artificial cravings, no longer handing your power over to the next image, the next body, the next distraction in disguise. You are done playing the role of the unconscious man, the puppet, the addict, the beggar in the golden cage. You are ready to remember what they tried to make you forget, that you are not a consumer of this world. You are its architect. But only if you stop leaking the blueprint. Only if you stop trading your throne for temporary warmth. Only if you stop giving away the kingdom of your focus to every whisper that flatters your ego but poisons your spirit. You were not made to kneel to lust. You were not born to be ruled by your instincts. You were born to rise above them, to take the sacred flame of your desire and wield it like a sword not against others, but against everything inside you that still chooses comfort over conquest. You are not the child of your cravings. You are the father of your future. And now is the time to step into that fatherhood, to lead your own soul, to train your own hunger, to silence the noise and listen to the voice beneath it all. The voice that has always whispered, you are more than this. You are not what they made of you. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your shame. You are not the number of lovers or the number of likes or the number of days you've wasted chasing a pleasure that never fulfilled you. You are what you decide right now. And if you decide to stop chasing, if you decide to stop surrendering your energy to anything that does not build you, if you decide to walk away from the synthetic seductions of a culture that fears your awakening, Then you are no longer a man who watches from the sidelines. You are the man who returns to the throne. And once a man has tasted sovereignty, he will never trade it for slavery again. So let the world keep selling. Let them keep marketing the illusion. Let them keep shouting that you are not enough unless you prove it with conquest and submission. Let them talk, because you are done talking. You are building, you are remembering, you are rising. And no algorithm, no trend, no body, no gaze, no voice can take that from you again. Because now, you see, and once a man sees, he cannot unsee. And that sight, that sacred, sovereign sight, that is the birth of the unstoppable man, the desexualized man, the man they cannot control, the man who rules not others, but himself.